Mu san ge che dan zo ye jo nam lo e chan jo pa do da ni yap sen che da ge chen zo ye be cho nam ye do la ben chen san ye do ba ra jo san ye che dan zo ye jo nam lo chan jo pa do da ni yap sen che da ge chen zo ye be cho nam ye Dola benje sanje do barajo sanje chedan soje jonam la chanjo bardo dane gyabsen dage jenzo yebe sonam je dola benje sanje do barajo simjen damje dewa dan dewe gyodan dembara Semjen damje dunga dan dunga je yu dan da wara yu je semjen damje dunga la me be de wa da me da wara yu semjen damje nyere ja da ni dan da ve da nyum la ne wara yu ru je semjen damje de wa dan de ve yu dan de wara yu je semjen damje dunga dan dunga je yu dan da wara yu je Simjen damje dungala mebe dewa dam mi dawar yuje simjen damje niren jana nidan dan yam la ne bar yur je simjen damje dewa dan dewe yudan dembar yuje simjen damje dungal dan dungal ye yudan dawar yuje simjen damje dungala mebe dewa dam mi dawar yuje simjen damje niren jana nidan Danyam la ne baran yor ye yo e da je bu ye yo je me do do re ro le je ye de ye bo ye san ye shen do me de bu ye do gue nan do je lo je bar jo yi dang guru re na men da la ni an da ri an bi dong ye da wa rin bo je ma ye ba nam gen ju ro je ke wa nyam ba me bo ne gon do pe wa re sho in English. If you get it.
Take refuge in the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, and by the merit included in this practice, may I attain the state of Buddhahood for the benefit of all sentient beings. From now until my enlightenment, I take refuge in the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, and by the merit created in this practice,
may I then do for the benefit of all sentient beings. Enlightenment, I take refuge in the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, and by the merit created in this practice, may I then stay the Buddhahood for the benefit of all sentient beings and its causes. May all sentient beings be free from suffering and its causes. May all sentient beings never be separate from joy. May all sentient beings abide in equanimity, free of bias, attachment, and anger. May all sentient beings enjoy happiness and its causes. May all sentient beings be free from suffering and its causes. May all sentient beings never be separate from joy. May all sentient beings abide in equanimity, free of bias, attachment, and anger. May all sentient beings enjoy happiness and its causes. May all sentient beings be free from suffering and its causes. May all sentient beings never be separate from joyful bliss. May all sentient beings abide in equanimity, free of bias, attachment, and anger. And on with perfume strewn with flowers, Mount Meru, encircled by four continents, surrounded by sun and moon, I visualize this Buddha field and I offer it. May all living beings enjoy the pure land. Idam Guru Ratnam Mandala Kam.
Meditation. Hello, Trashidele, everyone. Dene ta te tsamala Trashidele Shuatang Chitan Chikleta. Dene ta tu yundu tanganzo tanda di chuzo yingone chitani hapta chikla ta zirim dojina ta chik sala wala ene chik ngaranzu lam luksu na shingi ene chik tumba de pomjaya de na shingi sapemba nimoyena chik ta na pomjaya dang tumba de di zirim ene sa nimala ene dende chik zinda sone chik dende dolin che ya ge rimba do dende chi yore se chik ngore chinan
September ba khande jelen. September.
za pemba ma pemba la ene chik to pomjaya tumba de ya
Greetings to all, and just in general, in our center here, we have programs weekly. On Wednesday evening, we do recitations of prayers, and then Saturday meditation as well as recitations of prayers. And then on Sundays, we have classes along with the discussions.
다 딘데 림바로 딘데 난고야다 딘데 기 고바 균센다 딘데 도지 도도지 슈바이나 지단이 지릉아조 점블링 용기 SM 직만전 도와리스 도와리도 청마에네 직 라신지에네 직 대원도 받아 동알면도 봐 인방한조 직 소라기 용투 지단이 가조 용투고래 가조 하고고래 대나진기 직 소화대도 간디지 바이나야 다직 초 컨디션의 연구요 받아 람 컨디션 때문에 연구요 받아야 가지고 즉 켄토야단 된리기 제도 당한 저 된리기 나고래 다지단에 망보시는 내가 비대도 망보시대 가지고 치잉 오벌라 때문에 즉 셀토바단 다즉 삼삼라인 즉 겐다 또간다즉 된데 따와이나 즉 튀겐단 가겐 조망보시는 연구를 되는 조도에 당한서 먼저기 낭배凶도에 되는 제바에는 조데 희기 중공도에 간저 용사도에 조샘샘샘 조라 때는 에너지 디기 연구와 연구요와 된 저기 슝카망보네 세고래 제단에 라마케 진담마망보기 숭고래 대송반 낭탈기 당한저 단다 드링크상잖아 지단에 가서 뒤균 동안저 롭션 로데야디 즉 샘지 림반도 샘지 남자 딘데 콜라에네 즉 롭션 딘데 티단 티진바레 디 콜라에네 다 디체 난고레스 주나
Um, so why we have events here, including Sunday classes, is as you already know, on this planet, especially among the humans, it's common, it's same that we are all seeking happiness, goodness, as well as trying to free ourselves from all kinds of suffering. And we know this from our own kind of experiences, not only kind of something intellectual understanding. And so for that, we need to know what are the origin sources of our happiness, as well as where does this suffering, comes from. And when we look at the nature of the happiness and suffering, especially with the happiness, there are temporary external kind of causes which we can use and free ourselves from lots of temporary suffering and attain happiness. But in Buddhism, the ultimate happiness and peacefulness originates from the mind itself. So therefore, it is explained in many scriptures, as well as it has been taught by many Buddhist, great spiritual masters. So to sort of follow that, in Sundays we are trying to understand on the same topic about the mind, and therefore, we are trying to learn about the nature of the mind. And so for that, we are studying, this text.
지단에 뒤균 동안 저디간라 패대겐다데 저 상마지 지단에 가서 간데도 위에 kengo re de ina ka pobla ta chik me sawa tende 갑고라 페요 두 잠발라 다 지단에 간디도 오신 바단 된데 즉 캔데 캔네 패고르 되이나 다 된데 체도 당무를 된데 슈바인 지단에 아주 네 슈데야게 지단에 딜라 아주 남베 슝바이나 직야 첨보다 띵sam보 첨보 망보레 되이나 단다 띵알라 경고 교이진의 보게네 즉 갈로 런던 교라 초드 남베 닝보도 즉 초스 청만에 dom캡체 된데 숭대바 단당한 딜라 에네 대루군도 지단에 인지나라 man minds and check debut bati sheja chene dinala kang sumba no jen den do chene do ke thalam do chene ene den shute ke
So those who are coming regularly, you are already familiar with what's going on in here with the events and programs, but just sort of information for the newcomers, what we are doing at the center. And generally, when talking about mind and consciousness in Buddhism, the way it was explained is extremely, extrinsic and profound. And so therefore, the text that we are using, Science and Philosophy in the Indian Buddhist Classics, Volume 2, about the mind, is compiled and composed under the instructions of His Holiness the Dalai Lama. And this is also the very kind of comprehensive and summarized version about different topics, including the mind. So therefore, we are, studying using this text, based on this text, and trying to kind of, from Geshe-la's point of view, present, how it is explained in this book.
오데레 지단에 자 직나 디게 로다 세다 셈당 다 셈중라 소바 딘데 라인에 지단에 도난다 딘데 여바이나 데디네 지단에 지단 직 시바이나 네 펜도 용사레 용사레 삼게도 오데나 지단에 도난 여바이나 데디 라 시나 마보지 켄토그레 소소기 직 니레게 도단당 가디도 시바이나 다 지금 저기 따뜻한 데를 써고 뭐지 캔도 그래 상도
And if you have interest on this kind of topic, then this book is certainly beneficial. And just by reading, it would be a great beneficial, and you can know a lot about not only just on this consciousness, but also on Buddhist other aspects, philosophy, views, so on and forth.
온데네르서 다 튀긴 동안 저쪽다 도심 뭐 못이는 좋아이나 다 가상 딩에마기 된다 디나랑 저기 직 셈당 셈중기 림바도 간디임바 디기 셈당 셈중기 개바도 된데 디나라 송반나 진정어도 낭차와래 다 디게니 디기 슈고델라이니 제 셈당 셈중기 예와 셈중라이나 가져요와 디기에니 다 단당 원바군디니 송반나 진이 지르니 슝 디나라 슝 송반나 진슝 카망보시도 된 디단다 조도데 단다 ngomba kundu dan zogi shija nangche ene ta chik semgi semda semjungi yawa de la chik thangdang tenje desul mandawa ka mangbo yongge yusare so tanda digang la ene semjung ngabchunga chi ilane sungyore ta sem kundonga yurunga zanyon tu nyenyon nishu kewa chukchik shenjur shi che tanda dinala kopa na shingi ene ta tenje ki rimpa to yore digi rimpa de ene chik chele to da kunzo ki ene chik tsanyi dan yawa 얘네 즉 딘데리 림바도데 송용고래 디나진체네 당한서 디랭기 롭텐데 지르 에네 sem중 가져요바다 디기 꼴라에네 차대고래 에네 데네 다나진게네 디랭기 롭텐데라 에네 본동아기 조 가리 선이다 예월로 소바 간데 요바디 대시자체네 슈야기 베스 슈야인
So right now we are on the mind, distinguishing mind and mental factors. And prior to that, in this section of the book, we talked about, sort of introduction to the mind or consciousness and mental factors and differences between these two. And now, we'll be dealing with if you have a book, it's on page 105. Enumerations of the mental factors, how mental factors are enumerated and what are their numbers. So based on different scriptures, there are different numbers. And primarily, the two texts that we'll be seeing here is a compendium of knowledge and a compendium of treasury of knowledge. Compendium of knowledge and treasury of knowledge. So we'll see later, about these mental factors and the numbers of the mental factors. And mental factors that we see here, if you book on page 106, most commonly cited 51 mental factors. So these 51 mental factors are categorized into 6 groupings. And those are, 5 omnipresent mental factors, 5 mental factors with determinate object, third, 11 virtuous mental factor, and fourth is 6 root mental afflictions, and fifth is 20 secondary mental afflictions, and then sixth is 4 variable or changeable mental factors. And later we'll be going into these 51 mental factors, their meaning, classifications, functions. And so today, to begin with that, we'll be starting with the first grouping, which is 5 omnipresent mental factors. So we will go according to how it is presented in this book, beginning with the meaning. And so Geshe will try his best to kind of present.
어디제 지단에 단다 딩알라니 다 조도데 단다 초 파바토메 경험바 군주당 네 로베잉에게 중원반 저기 조르체데 다 심중게 남자데 또 송게도 돼야 네 파바토메 경험바 군주네 봉봉에 남자 때람베 값소 아니 소레 봉보단 도시기 봉보니 니게 뭐다 젤레소 아니 개발 젤레소 걔네 개발 로소 땐체 되게네 봉보들라 두제기 봉보들라야 총된 두제다 총된 많이 빈 두제 근데 니소송 총된 두제들라야 총된 두제 제베가서야 셈다 직sem중 라마 땐람베 바치 sem중게 당업중아 지소송 받는데 다 수용게도
So two primary text, if your book on page 106, Compendium of Knowledge by Asanga, and then the other text is Treasury of Knowledge by Vasubandhu. And so in the first text, Compendium of Knowledge, as said in the in the text on the same page, in the Compendium of Knowledge by Asanga, there's a presentations about 5 aggregates, and then the definition, function of the aggregate of feeling and discernment. They are presented separately, and then there is a aggregate of conditioning factors, which is divided into 2, translated as conditioning factor that are concomitant with the mind, and aggregate of conditioning factors that are not concomitant with the mind. So these are presented in the Compendium of Knowledge by Asanga.
어디제 델타나 징게다 sem중del라양 압중아주도 당에 네바레베스 바이나 땡에게 그말 땡에게 사마레 디와라네 타나 징게 슝망보치 다디나 송바나 징게 당네 네 rinchen changwa so shung mangbochi la ene tenala ene ngabchungachi de la mandibe ene mangbochi shung deshe nangye sare tiani kemba nangwe to deshe chagido.
And although in the Asanga's Compendium of Knowledge, the numbers of the mental factors presented are 51, but however, 51 mental factors not kind of sort of fixed numbers. Different text presents different numbers, enumerations of the mental factors, such as in the text says Nagarjuna's precious garland. In many other texts presents different numbers of the mental factors.
Could you talk first of all about what an aggregate is for people who might not know? Also, when we say mental factors, what that is.
And what the 미사우도 풍부다 심중래 얘기 된다 그것도
제제제 다나제 지단에 당한주 풍보가 세대서 뭐 수이 수기 풍보 소리 풍보 두시기 풍보 두시기 풍보 넘버 10 풍보가 된데 지단에 가서 뒤균도 여대 봐 된데 숨고로 와 어디 대직 슈나로
So generally, when we talk about aggregate, aggregates uh, are classified into five, beginning with the we said aggregate, form, feeling, discernment, compositional factors, and consciousness. So there are five aggregates.
됐어 왔다 대본 되는
풍부해야 돼, 가리려. 내가 그때 오신 풍부도 승중해야 돼.
네네네 제제제 야야 언제인지 다 지단에 당한저 홍보당 홍보라도 삼발라 수젠당 아니 다직샘다 샘제도 삼발라 수메 덴디실라 ngajongonjin gore chidani chir ngajo 체리비 제바이는 간쪽이 직 수보기 젤레데 소세나다 직 조로 델레가도데 에네 직 레바기 제고레 레바데야 수젠도 켈렘바데 숭고레데 당아주 남베 슝기 제바이나 조데 에네 젤레데 에네 직 샘기 조치 제고레 데아니 수단 수젠다 수메니게나니 수메 온데데 지긴나 남자 아니 숭고레
So aggregate generally kind of refers to something that which has a form, and on the sort of other side, when we talk about consciousness and mind, formless without form, and in scientific kind of interpretations, talks about brain and its function. But in Buddhism, we talk about your mind, and mind is unlike a brain. It is formless, without form.
어디지 되네 지단행아 저 딩은라 당아 저 조센 심바도 오데 되나 지단행아 저 다지 셈 로데 라인 로리 든도 예와 아니 즉 숨다 셰바다 다 제실라 소바다 어디 든데 든데 예와 든데 숨고레 어디 지르리 타네 지 쉬샤나 이제 참아 투자
Simon. Earlier we went, when we explained about the mind, we talked about, sevenfold typology, or 7 types of the mind in the text, and these 7 are distorted cognition, doubt, correct assumption, and then inferential cognition, subsequent cognition, and direct perception, and finally indeterminate perception.
온데데 로리 든 요바다 데네 로리 든 소소소소라 다직 요와 지게 니 요와다 니 요와다 숨도 요와서 데데 망보지 림바체네 당한주 쉬니 용세 말에 다 데단 텔네 다 데리 단다 디 갑소 바바니 콘동아 심중업 중어질라 소바데 단다 오디 로기 림바테네 마 트네 다 데데 지네 다직 되게 젤레 즉 14도 수가 된대기에는 쉬운 거래서
And then that within those 7 cognition or consciousness, there's further divisions of 2-fold, 3-folds. And again, if you go into more detail about those, then we come to this section of the mental factors, how particularly mental factors are identified and their functions.
오디레 다치다니 다탄다 딘소 차상 슈고야기 균젠도 뒤균동안 쪽이 즉 semnang la tenzo ki lor tenzo yoye ba to chi da ta tanda di gang la rimba chine anzo shung tu samba la tanda di kundu nga to cha sha ba ina ya kundu nga ti kundu nga zo ki long su che de ba ta chik sorwa dan tu she semba rekwa yela che ba ta di ki ne so ki ngone chik dewa da dunga tangyum la so ba chile khandi nang ki yome tende ki rimba to tanda di gang la tanda di ka su sumba na jing ki kondu tanda anzo lo nga sumba na de zola yang ta na jing ki rang su ki chik chele tang chanyi yewa tende yo ta na pe jana la yo re tina jing tende yang she la chip sa tende siwa ina tina sina tiga resi.
So the mental factors, that we're going to talk, such as 5 omnipresent mental factors, and remaining, mental factors of 51. These are considered as something that we already experience in our day-to-day life, something that already we experience. And for example, within the first grouping, 5 omnipresent, feeling, discernment, intention, contact, attention. These are something that we already experience, although might not aware of these. And the more detail will come later in the text.
어디제 다 단다 디가서 다 지난 소와 세와이나 간데도 오실라 문징 지단에 지 소와도 어딘데기 슈바이나 단다디 송바나 진리 소와델라이나 소와 대와당 동알당 네 당념라 소바 디 냠수 뇽겐데기 스타직 셈sem중델라 에네 카레 소와세 슈기도와 다나징기 두시세드 zambal라 데에네 ngombodan serbodan kata yultegi ene kadodan ila soba yulgi kebardan pu yaglu ene chik khande yemendan biga tendegi chi kebar chegendela ene ta chik semjungdela ene chorwa ta pena tanda di chorwa chen tuje dela ene chik tanda dinala sumbana shingi do kablengi cha semba dela do kablengi ene cha yor cheba shinsegi pena nganzo do kablen degi ene nganzo cha digangla ene cha wala dinde yudu sambala digi yama ene chik ucha kya chugu yoba nachin digi ene sem ki ene che sem koran digi chele de ene ta chik sem yama yor cheba dinde ki chele cheba ene chik rekwa digi yulde tebar cheba dinde ki tebar cheba yila cheba digi semla mikwa cherabar ene dönne ta chik yila sunwa ta dinde sungido.
These 5, omnipresent mental factors, beginning with the feeling, first in kind of general, the feeling, it refers to mental factor that experience, such as, the 3 most common types of happiness, suffering, neutral. The one that sort of feel experience is the mental factor called feeling. And discernment is the one that kind of, identify individual sort of features or characteristics, such as looking at a particular object and knowing its identifying its color as a blue or yellow, particular features. And intention in the text says somebody. It's like a mental factor that that functions like a magnet. When there's a magnet, it kind of pulls nearby, the other metal part. And contact is coming together of the object and the consciousness that apprehends that object. And then finally, attention is able to bring mind focus particularly on whatever is the object of the observation or the focal object.
Odije ta dinala da wa dinala injinala ta ti domdo odije cha ti da misi ki shu ko ke me ta kan ta kyan di ta da kon tu shu ba de chi de chi yong ki ngang zo ki ta ngarang zo ta rang cha choro kundu nga se wa de khandi to je re ma de so so lo la nge tu ya ki tende ki ta gyun zen do da tende ki che do ta tende sung de ba tende to che ki to chi yong ki ngone ta so so ta di re re ki ne chi tsengi do de ma wala 용기도 디나진 페나단다디 초로와도 오지 제바나 디간라 숨바나진지 심동 동어 마리 심 심동 파르마치리 란톱지 냠소뇨 남바 첸제네 심중 세드 잠발라 타 치다네 셈데 도 당뇽숨 에네 치 냠소뇨에 에네 남바 첸제네 심중 세단다 콘두슈바 디 다오도지 차로도 디에네 타 치다네 디게니 천인도 실전에 다 디기 지 송고래 다나 지긴데 뭔가 군드네 나네 송바나 쟁게네 서로 이게네 천이 가르제 레제 슈바이나 지 녀와데네 서로 천이레 송바나 쟁데 시 차기도
What was said earlier was a very general about those five, kind of simple way to understand or keep in your mind. But the more detail we'll find in the text, beginning with the feeling. And feeling is, in the text, it says, a mental factor that by its own power experiences any type of pleasure, pain, or neutral feeling. So it is a mental factor that has a capacity, that has the ability to experience, these kind of sensations, most commonly categorized into three: pleasure, pain, and neutral feeling. And then sort of to back up that, there's a quote from the text, a Compendium of Knowledge, which basically says that, experiencer, what is the definition of feeling? The Compendium of Knowledge says, it has the characteristic of experience. So that's the a part of the definition or meaning of the feeling.
어디제 때네 서로와들라 여와도 제바이나 서로와데 대화다 동아 당용 순도 여와당 에네 서로와다 에네 리소르다 심조니소 여와 텐데도 오치네 짐바 니도 용게도 당보에네 직 서와데도 당용 순데 뇽소 진지 율라 주바나 대화 직 당아주 녀와 여바다 지단네 직 ngaze hagoya da tindi dile shugorada pena dewa da zonga de to kanya ta kanya ne dewa zonga da dewa da zonga ene de to kanya mai ba sumbodi ene sumdu ta di sungi sari tangbodi so de to tanyo sumdu yawa de diche ene lusordan simsoni di ombo nambe kordo joene chik soan dezola karelagere zena ene dire lusor ene yigi nambe shebe kordo jo soan dezola ene karelana ene simsor da dina sumbana jingi tendi shugor
Types of feelings. When categorized, in the text says three types of feeling: pleasure, pain, and equanimity. And another ways of categorization is just sort of the basis. There are two: physical and mental feeling. And according to the first way of categorizing, when a consciousness accompanied by feeling engages an object, it experiences pleasure, pain, or equanimity, which is neither pleasure nor pain. So the first category, when, as said here, the primary consciousness is accompanied by feeling, it can sense any of these three: pleasure, pain, and equanimity. The second categorizations, according to the second way of categorizing, feelings that accompany a sense consciousness are called physical feelings, whereas feelings that accompany a mental consciousness are called mental feelings. So basically, these two are based on the basis. The first one is one that is based on the physical sense, physical organs, physical based on sense consciousness are physical feelings, and the second one, that which is based on the mental consciousness, is considered as mental feelings.
어디지 다 디네왈 니 리버터 어디 간쪽이 지단 된쪽이 소화돼서 내단 내림도 된데 숨도 단다
Formations. Feelings. Right now we are talking about feelings. The first of the
sensation.
Yeah, could be different translation, but we are using what is translated in this book, feeling.
다 바바를 오마 시자발에 숨바나제 류라 로원 지진도 디모군라 nen주 대시 숨바나진게 류게 원본 류원데 지주네 다 간디게 바탐젤라 차바나진게 미시소 에네 셴시 초라에네 디야 아니 류다 지주네니 간디바도 캬데바 덴데지 다직 숭도 데나 초라데와 다 동안 이메데와 당년소 당한조 류기 다 차상 라인은 아주 용 도바 덴데시기 내림도 다 네세 네네로 덴데송 슈도
We have quote from Ari, there was 400 stanzas, for example, just as the tactile sense faculty pervades the whole body, delusions dwell within all mental afflictions. Tactile sense faculty pervades all parts of the body, from the crown of the head to the soles of the feet. So any feelings accompanying the other four sense consciousnesses, such as the visual sense consciousness, are physical feelings. Additionally, there is a way of categorizing feeling as five: pleasant physical feeling, unpleasant physical feeling, pleasant mental feeling, unpleasant mental feeling, and neutral feeling. So in here, physical or tactile sense faculty basically pervades from every part of the body, beginning from the tip of the crown until into the soul. So with that pervasion, meaning we can sense and feel from any part of our body.
어디지 다 디디기 에네 초로이 거데 주좀 받지 에네 다 도시기 ngo데 에네 라율라 란도지 세마르 짐베 라율라 란도기 에네 세마르 짐베 semjung 세야디 다 디기 에네 ngo 숨도 된다 님보데 땅 직 율델라 에네 직 소소소소기 다직 다 세마르손네 다직 뭐진 투베네 도시게 받아 된데질라 chagyosar ane tsemar zin chebani yulgi kebar ta tsemar zin sewadi kandechila shugurizane yulgi ta nganzo kebar zeto zambala chik do tang yib tang ane chik pyuga yaglo tang dendegi tenla sumbana jingi dendegi ta susu keman na dire tene ngomba kundule dushigi sanyi chijena dushi shebar chebe sanyi te tsemar zimba hose ta kanda yulde la ane ta nganzo ki semdi juun du zambala di ene di dan di re sambe chik ngopo khanda khanyin bayi na ya da chik di toon du zambala shingdo ki rido uji chebayi na shingdo mangpo kha mangpo yore di ena ne da chik ngazo dukyun du kende dewa kushu do uji re na kushu di ki ene chik yibdan khato dela dene da di kushu re sambe dushi keba dela den ene chik dushi zede juwa na jengi da ondende re.
So that is briefly about feeling. The second is discernment. If you will book page 108. Discernment is a mental factor that by its own power apprehends the distinguishing mark of its object. The phrase apprehends the distinguishing mark means not to mix up the distinguishing characteristics or fine distinction of an object. So this mental factor, as says here, apprehends the distinguishing mark of its object. So apprehending or cognizing and knowing the particular features of the object that it is trying to kind of, apprehend. So let's say the color, shape, or quality. And therefore, through those, it's able to identify one particular object among many others as a discernment. And the quote from Compendium of Knowledge, what is the definition of discernment? That which has the essential nature of either apprehending a distinguishing mark or apprehending a mental image through which a convention is applied to the objects of seeing, hearing, differentiating, and understanding.
어디지 다 지단에 도시기 배려 어떤 거 좀더 시사 주나 되게 지단에 뒤균 동안 다 지게 대상 지단에 거랑 로버트 미스 키스 데네도 용도 다 키도 시 소용도 좀 키기 젤레도 다 데네체네 지 나로라 쿠르라 데네체야다 미도 시 소네 미게네 제단 레단라 테네 지 사강다 데졸라 서비스야 디엔도 삼발라고 로버트 임바이나야 다디 제단 레단 키젤라 따네 디 미도시 두 선배 도시기야로 딘데 기고라다 딘데지 로도고달라 땅도 도시 뭐지나 디고 상도
So discernment is a simple example would be robotic, creation, such as if there's a robotic dog which acts and behaves like a dog, we identify such as a dog, and that kind of discernment, this is a dog. And likewise, although not human, but robotic human acts and behave like a human, we can identify such as a human, and that is what discernment is.
데네 다 도시기 여와델라에나 세만즘베 도시나 타워즘베 도시니 엄보 왕싱이 코리돈 도시 도시일타부 도시일타비우제 원서소지 던 만데버즘바 짐베나 에네직 세만즘베 도시 이게 넘버십에 코리 도시일타부 더부 디 엄보 디 카르포 셰소 타니 만다원 짐바디 에네 타워즘베 도시니 세데 도시달라 덴데 숨바나진 에네 도시 강기 네 강론 주베시네 통화소 실내 통화니 원숨지 통해 된라 단년 도바다 퇴바니 이 집에 직 퇴바들라 되네 단년 도바 에네 제라 따발라 되네 거 단년 도바 넘버 세 원숨동에 된라 시베 단년 도바 숨바나징이 저기 인터셋 달래 에네 미기 통화다 나의 퇴바다 이기 셔바다 제류기 류숨지 제바체 체네 숨바나징이 단다 다 디니 숨바나징이 다 소소 다 네바잖아 되게 똑단다디 여와 두시기 여와데
When categorized, discernment has two divisions, discernment that apprehends a distinguishing mark and discernment that apprehends the images. The first is discernment accompanying any of the five sense consciousness that apprehends the objects, such as blue, yellow, without mixing them up. The second is discernment accompanying a mental consciousness that apprehends thoughts, such as this is blue or this is yellow, without mixing up these classificatory conventions. So two types. One is, first one is more based on physical sense, and second is more based on the mental. On what basis do these types of discernment operate? Of the four of seeing and so on, seeing refers to applying a classificatory convention to things seen directly. Hearing refers to applying a classificatory convention to trustworthy words heard. Differentiating refers to applying a classificatory convention to things asserting independence on evidence, and understanding refers to applying a classificatory convention through discernment to things asserting directly. According to the explanatory commentaries on Abhidharma, this applies to what is seen by the eye, heard by the ear, understood by the mind, and differentiated by the three, nose, tongue, and bodily sensation. So you can sort of get, classifications on what is said here.
야 어디지 되네 다 숨바 샘징오데 네트직 란다 순den지 샘율라 요진 콜러 제베 샘종세다 디에니 샘제니 모델라 되네 숨바나징이다 디 지단 켄단 기게 요그리다 단다디 다 지단에 샘데 샘율라에니 직 주바 제바다니 샘제니 직 단다 요진 콜러 제트 잠발라 직 샘델랑은 저기 직 샘 코란기군 다치쿨 디제네다 율라 주바다 데데 페나 단다디 콘도 숨바나 징이 단다 도 칼렌디 세트 잠발라 페나 세르가도 숨시시 디간라 요바이나 도 칼렌디 강네 데데 제바이나 디 세르가디 야마 구자 계시던도 디기 페데 숨기요사레 디 페데기 샘데야 데데 제네다 직 율라이네 야마 직 랑다 순덴지 샘 율라이네 요르자바 야마 직 도르자바 데데 제베 데데 제라이네 sungu yosar. Tia ane ngomba kundine sem kaangchana, sem ngomba ducheba yiki lede se gewa, ta shibra chewa ina gewa da me gewa, luma tenla, lung tu ma tenpa nam, semla jukbar cheba chena, ta shibra cheba ina sem tiki chele do, gewa da me gewa, ge me ge kaya mayimba, tendeki ta chik semla jukbar tenla sungu.
The third of the five is intention. Intention in here, it says the mental factor that moves and incites the mind with which it is concomitant toward the object. So this is the mental factor that kind of, as said here, moves and incites mind towards the object. So the text compendium of knowledge says, what is intention? It is mental action that actually conditions the mind. It has the function of making the mind engages in virtuous, non-virtuous, or neutral actions. And we said before, the metaphor of the magnet. Just like if you move a magnet above metal nails, it moves on, the nails. And just like that, the intention kind of functions or works in that way along with the primary mind.
어디제 되네 디타라 되네 된 왕부군 예와이나 미기두데 라베 semba 이기두데 라베 두데 레베 셈레 저 파라니 탄다 네 죽이고 미기두데 라바 나엔두데 라바 제두데 라바 이기두데 라바 단두데 라바 다 칸서게 디에니 레발렌 중 세멘 두데 라베 파라니 죽숭 수숭도 질 레라네 셈벨레다 삼벨레 니요발레 셈벨레세야데다 이기 넘버 남셰단 숨발템베네 셈라 네 칼라그레 셈벨레 꾸넬라웨네 룽아게레 룽아게레라네 삼벨레 다치 꿀롱지 고네네 제 류당아 기고네 제바델라 카렐라나 ene yikile ondini sungudu and
When so I'll just read the remaining part. What function does intention have? It has the function of motivating actions of thought, body, and speech. This intention does what it does is that it does creations of say virtuous, non-virtuous, neutral actions. For example, just as a magnet moves iron, this mental factor's ability is to make the mind or any of its mental factor engage the object. Classifications, when categorized in terms of the sense faculties, which are the basis, there are six. So just like there are six, sense faculties, there are six types of intention, ranging from the intention that arises from contact involving the visual sense faculty to the intention that arises from contact involving the mental sense faculty. So starting from the eye, sense faculty, eye, nose, ear, and then goes down to the mental. So there are six. And then again, another way of categorization is two types of action. Action that is intended and action that is intention and action that is intended. The first one, the action that is intention refers to an intention that is concomitant with the mental consciousness it accompanies. So the first one is more kind of the level of the thought, consciousness. And the second is more kind of the expressions of that thought. The action of body or speech motivated by that is called action that is intended.
So
there's a quote from Treasury of Knowledge, Abhidharma Kosh, saying, action is intention and what is done by it. Intention is an action of mind. Actions of body and speech are produced by it.
어디제 되네 다 시바데 일라체병어 제제드좀바다 란다 춘텐제니 셈미바 체라발라 란도지 돈에 셈제드 삼발라 따직 란 다 dina so rangdang sungtenji ene sem mikwa chira pala ene ta phagi yulte la ene mikne ta mikwa chira baji ene la mikne chira pa rangtop ki ene le te pala te je ene sem chungwa te la ene ta chik ene indi ene yila che lola keba te lola keba te ki ene yila che bazi ta definition di che tuanda ro ta dindeji chagidu dila semba dida semba niki kepa ni ta yila chepa da semba niki kepa de kan sem rangdang sungtenji sem yul chila yowar chepa yinla semba da yila chepa niki kepa de semba di kante chogo chen rangdang sungtenji sem yul chi de la yowar chepa da yila chepa de yul chera pala sem chobar cheba digi da semba da yingi ki kebar de dindi sungudu te ngomba kundile yila cheba khanje na sem jin chukba de yila cheba da mikpa de la sem zimbar cheba de khari chenzena mikpa de la sem zimbar cheba de yila cheba da sem chukba de semba dindi ro sungu san dingi ki semda yigi kebar yila yigi ngōdo di sungdo di ba.
Fourth, attention. Attention is a mental factor that by its own power directs the mind with which is concomitant to a particular object. So as said in the definition, it's a mental factor by its own power. What it does is it directs the mind, mind that which is concomitant or that which is together with the mental factors, directs the mind towards whatever the object that is trying to focus upon, to a particular object. The difference between this and attention and the intention is that intention moves the mind with which it is concomitant toward the general object. So the difference between the intention and the attention is that intention moves the mind towards the general object, and attention directs the mind towards a particular object, particular or specific object. And then a quote from Compendium of Knowledge says, what is attention? It is mental engagement. It has the function of mentally apprehending the object. No.
The difference between that general object and particular object. General object being used in the definition of intention, and then the particular object being used in the definition of attention.
그다음에 키워 등에 유직 지라 요어 저거 지 유치다라 요어 저거라로. 근데 유치다
요어들 다 율치다 율치라 요어디 셈다 아니 율치라라 요어디 아니
저거들 마셔. 저거들 지 유치다 유치라라 있는데 간대적 작업을 빼셔로실 유치라는 건 저 유치라는 간대적 작업.
다 치세나 투몰라 조야기에 민도지 찾아나 되게 미라도 삼발라 투몰라 주그러 다 미스 소소소소기에 민다 제라페나 룽바도지라 찾아와이나 룽바디 민디 지도페나 아메리카라도 삼발라 jalka 상말라 아메리카 징아디 놉주 찾아나 주그러 디 이니 지도죠 다 제라라도 삼발라 디기 에니 야라 칙 에네 단당아 저기 나데 찌도 쇼바이나 단다 인디아나로 쇼바이나 다 제라도 저거 디 찌다 제라 딘데 삼로 단나 디기도
general and particular in terms of if you're using an example of sort of area, the general would be just like America, US as a nation, and the particular would be particular state like Indiana. So that would be in a very general sense, general and particular.
오디 제테네 다 나바데니 regbe ngodo yulwang namshi sum du ne sowa dewa donga tanyo so kang nyongyur dang che su tumbe rangto yul ngo su chobar chebe simjung ngo che de sambala di ene rekbe ene dito ngo che digi tuanta dinde se shubay na ta chik yul tanda yulwang namshi sum du ne sowa dedu kang nyongwa ina ya di ene cheta chik ta misu karne ta chik chuba tende chila ta kogiyo sare tende chik tunda lawa ta dinay sumana je shushana ya di yagado odi che yul ngosu chobe tenne se yul wang namshi sum diba na yul chedaba te rangi tumo mayimbi yul to cheba laos yul wang namshi sum dui sheba ni tunyam do diba la chamirung taki wangbo te dan tela tembe ene namshi ni ngachi wa yimbi tui minyamo tena yul wang namshi sum 상월라 제도 숨반 나징기 디나라 다 숨반 나징기 디 rekpa ki ngode de shushanari.
The fifth one is contact. Contact is a mental factor that once the object, the sense faculty, and the sense consciousness have come together by its own power, selects an object in accord with whatever feeling of pleasure and so on is to be experienced. The phrase in the definition, selects an object, quote and unquote, means to select a particular object as its own unique object. Once the object, sense faculty, and sense consciousness have come together. The phrase, quote, the object, the sense faculty, and the sense consciousness have come together, unquote, does not indicate that they have come together at exactly the same time. For the sense faculty, which is the dominant condition, and the sense consciousness, which is the base on it, are sequential, not simultaneous. Thus, the phrase have come together refers to the three conditions, the object, sense faculty, and the sense consciousness being complete.
tenji gone migi dudera ta yewa de chebayana migi dudera bana igi dudera be patu de ngondu suma chiba chobo chaido ta tanda diga wa de la ne tanda choro tandu che semba repa ila cheba nga sinjung ngabo de la kundung nga ze de shugu be kyunzen do karere ze shubayana dinala sumba na jingi teda ngabo de ene sem tamje ki kordo ndrowen sem tamje sem kando yewa kundung nga yebe 균zen기 ene kunro kunroze de sumba insare ta sem kunji kodon rowe 균zen기 ene ta kunroze de sum kunzena changma dan rozena chikte rowa de la ko ra da changa chu chikte koran da de shubaina.
The classifications of the contact also, there are six based on the, as we said earlier, the base of the six bases of sense faculty. When categorized has six types from contact when the visual sense faculty and so on have come together to contact when the mind's sense faculty and so on have come together. So there are six types of contact. And the reason why these five are called omnipresent, in English, omnipresent, in Tibetan would be kundo. Kun means all, do means going, but also accompany. So what it means is accompanying every primary consciousness or every mind. So these five accompanies or exist all the time with the, with the primary mind. Here it is translated as a cognitive event. So we'll take a break here. Aggregate. Aggregate.
Oh, it's fine. It's fine. You can always come and go. I'll ask my question if you go. All right. So we were talking about aggregates earlier. One explanation I heard for aggregates, the five, are that these are the five parts of a person, like that make up a person, and not necessarily a human being, but like a sentient being. So they're like five categories of things that we think makes up a person. Is that an accurate way of looking at it?
풍부라야 되지 풍부 뭐란게 그 제시에 고야직라 풍부라야디 풍부 디게디 추루루 소소나네 심jen지 차고레스 근데 심jen지 차야들 풍부 디게 추루루 장 심jen지 차고레스 고스스타디 딱다르게 말외로도 풍부 고아데
풍부 뒤네 아니 심진 차고레스 아니 지단이 땅저 풍부라나 땅저 수도지랑 원진 거로 다디양 데데 라마 쳐바다면도 다른
디딱다르게 말외로도 저 심jen이 차야디 풍부 디게 추루루 소네니 차스나 심제 차고레스 다 차긴도 오시라면도 풍부 차기 풍부 심jen이
풍부 직부직 뒤네 아니 심진 차그리 라야데 배제 배 딱딱다 차사 말에 베나 다직 나도 심진 차와라 아니 샘디 니버도 거로
제가 뭐 봉봉아들라고 봉봉아 초드나 홍보디 나오는 봉봉아 열어다 수공소야 봉도시 봉도지 원하지 봉고 제가 디게가 되었으나 얘는 심지어 차고 있어라 스테인데 저걸 곧 남시 왜 봐라
알로 디디나다 디디레 다른 디디 차게 따라 차고 데 차게
So in that case, when you are saying aggregate, if you are referring to the five aggregates, then in that case you are saying that is accurate, right? Yeah.
Yeah, some pagidan kora suchibuchila samlatanda jishaydo.
But they're the basis of imputation.
The 풍부디
Putting together and projecting.
그 닥시로 와라도 풍부가 되게 돼.
제 당한도 된지제 다레 닥시 풍봉아데 가르레제.
풍부디 닥시로 와라도.
닥시. 다 지단 레레레. 지단 풍복하는데라고 그래. 풍복라는 다 소리 풍복 도시기 풍복.
When you say aggregate,
Which
are you asking about particular aggregate from the five or aggregate in general? five. 풍봉아가 넣어도. 풍봉아가 유교시로 근데 닥시로 와라도.
레레. 당한도
풍봉아 속어대.
풍봉아 속에서 당한도 닥주는 지단 미 간사 라야데 풍봉아도 유니시바이나 풍봉아 속바텔라 아니 다 지민 가레다 따보면 따바텔라 니 디쳐고 닥시도 간사 디도 쳐고라 어디
So yes, in the text, it says for a person to be a person, for the basis of designation, then there's these five aggregates. So five aggregates becomes the basis of the designation, and on that the person is designated as a person. Yeah.
지단이 단다 디콜 슈바이나 안조 담 간사 라야데 타냐 도다 모타 라야데 타냐 도다 다직 지금 수세나래 근데 망보지 되바 될라 때네 대단테 타냐 자르마도 질 슝코라네 지금 마탄주로 선로다와이나 지단이 동바다 다음에 바치다니 근데 순고로와 답변나 간사도 오지를 찾아와이나 근데 지금 수공 소바 델라 아니 민타바나 징 민타고레 테네지 페나 페tum데 오데가도 모타 콜로디도 차체 소소소소레 치바이나 모타 디단 디스데 타녜타 투메와나 모타 디차산 냠도 디바이나 디게네 타녜타 투바 델라테네 페 디나징기 다딘데 당아주 시탐젤라텐데 따랑 덴데 타녜데 자로 순고레.
So this apply equally to object with the form and shape, including human vehicles, and human and vehicles, like say a car, is designated upon the combinations of its many components. And although in the middle way consequence schools, Madhyamika Prasangika talks about emptiness, selflessness, but when we designated something as a car, aside from the cars apart, there's no car. You cannot, impute something car without the car's part. So it has to be aggregate. It has to have combinations or gathering of its part, and then it becomes the aggregate or the basis of designation or imputation.
Sure. Yeah.
Each mental factor,
Mhm.
the definition
Mhm.
indicates that by its own
Power.
power.
Okay, I was thinking about
So
that.
how
Uh-huh.
is that inner winds that are karmically driven?
네. onda 거를 라운드 플라이저랑 하는 게 삼디 라운드 플라이드 가려고 그래요. 라운드 플라이드. 생이 곧 생이 수수도 라운드 그디도. 뭔데?
랑도블라나 딱고차 단다 페나 쿠랑 초디 초롱아데 디요라 단다 디급스
심중아.
심중아데 소소소소 뭐네 쿠랑 쪽이 투모마인 바기 젤레도 딘디질라 뭐지나 주나디긴도 지단에 랑도블라나 지금 란신기 나맘 추슈도 딘디지기 개버 딘디도 질라 뭐지나 디고르 지단에
So if saying own power means it's unique power, the power that it only has. So yeah, I was thinking about that because I think this is quite important, because at the beginning it says that every mental power, the first five we see own power, but then this has to apply to all remaining mental factors. So the simple example that was used is, because these mental factors has its own unique kind of capacity, ability, and with that, then it makes a primary mind function. So the simple example would be, if you are taking very spicy food, the food is spicy because of the pepper. So the food being spiciness is not of its own power. It's power of the spice. But when we eat the food, we feel that it's spicy. So that spiciness is the power of the pepper, not the food itself. And you can separate, the pepper from the food, and then you can have a food without spicy. So each mental factor, present itself as when we go more detail into the five, omnipresent, it has its unique function role for your mind to kind of, function as a mind. And therefore, for example, the attention, when you are looking at me or Geshe, because of the attention, you are looking at me, hearing me. You are not seeing all what's behind everything. So attention has the ability to make your mind particularly focus on very particular object. So that's what attention does. So each has mindfulness, so each has its unique ability, capacity, which how it is able to do is because it's the unique power. And therefore, when you look back, what is mind? Mind is merely recognition, apprehension. So when I look at you, I just say, oh, that's you. But then when I look closely, what you are wearing, what you are talking, then the mental functions. So in terms of the function, it says that mental factors are more powerful than the primary consciousness. So mental factor does more than, general consciousness.
Yeah, they cause a lot of trouble.
Yeah. Especially with the feelings. Yeah, the feeling is very, very, very important, and that's what I think is the best. You're welcome. Any other questions?
We're talking about intention being general and intention being specific. Like, can you have an intention about a specific object or a specific action you want to commit? Like, I don't understand how it's always general.
단기 지워들 안 셔.
아,
딥 코랑 인지 나오는 데는 하고.
언제도 오시도 언제래.
지단
지라기로 셈라 제바다 일라 제바세.
셈바다 일라 제바.
셈바다 일라 제바. 셈바다 어디 나로 컨디션.
So I think in the
어디는 수만하지 지단에 되는 송반하지 다 셈바데 지용기가 다 소단다디 군동아 차상라 디 캡데요지 일라 제바제데 zam발라 디 율텔라이네 지 셈데 때제 디가 데게네 양 된 제다바 개버바지 네네 다 데라 믹데인 다지 수술랑해봐 디디네 컨디요네 근데 소나 디야미 시그니피케요 저기도
so first Geshe was saying, general and particular, but if you look more closely at the definition, you will see the intention. For the intention, I think you should more focus on the factors of movement. When I look at you, when I'm looking at you, my mind is looking at you. So my mind is sort of not literally, but it's going towards you, right? So that movement is it's the intention.
Okay.
So the attention means keeping my mind on you rather than going everywhere. So from that perspective, I think it's more clear to understand differences between these two, although it says one more kind of general, one more particular. But if you look at the mental factor that moves and incites, so that's important. That's what intention does. On the other hand, the attention directs the mind. So direction and so you see the one is movement, right? Movement and insight. Another is the direction. So when I have attention to you, my mind is always at you. It's not going everywhere. So that's what attention does. What intention does is kind of bringing mind towards you from the primary. So what it does is when you're talking about the mental factors, it is working with the primary mind. So when I'm focused, primary mind is with you along with other mental factors. So it is talking about the particular function or role of the intention. So that might be more helpful to understand instead of just regular and
like the intention is what moves the intent.
What it moves is the intention. Yeah, if you look at the definition. Because when I talk about the intention, so it becomes more clarity. So right now when I'm talking with you, intention is keeping your mind to you. But as soon as you talk, my mind shift. So that shift, the movement, that is done by intention. And the retaining my mind with you is the attention. So that's I think that's more easier to understand, right?
What moves?
Intention.
What moves your intention?
Then I think you have to come up with by own power. That's what intention does.
Yeah, but you can change your
intention. So that's what mental factor intention does. Its very function is to move, moves and insights mind.
Intention changes your.
But again, I mean,
your volition.
Yeah, when you say intention here,
intend to do.
When we come to this kind of
moves your intention.
When you come to this level, I don't think the general understanding of what intention is not helpful. It has to be very specific in this context.
What about the word will?
So are you asking what the will mental factor is?
Well, the way I understand it is will can change your perception. You can direct your will, or you can direct your perception, you can direct your cognition, you can direct your intention, and you can direct your action. They are all interwoven, but there is something driving all of them behind the scene.
죄송합니다. 쌤그는 단다디 심중디 캐로 디지 쌤라 디칭해줘로 디 심중을라로 인다도 계실라 저거 그냥 쌤을라도 근데 심중 유치래 심중고랑 요하다 코스 디칭해 쌤라 칭해줘로 디 심중으로 요하 칭해데 심중
셈 레바데 레베 셈당 레베 셈당 데조야 가가지고 말해.
So again, he was asking, when you say will, where does will come from? What makes will?
Will is just will is just will.
Not mind, not
moves.
mental
It
factors.
moves mental factors. Will is something that moves mental
Rekpade.
factors.
그래, 오마 단다 호란 치월로
음.
위를 더 발라 그래.
음.
이 심중레로도. 그래서 미션은 되게 그러고 심중
지단에 리더래.
So yeah, you can say that's it's a mental factors, but there's no.
디 파기딜라 인지 네바 말이나 다 딘디지 숭바레 마도 딜 용초그로.
It can be mental factors, but there's no definite numbers for the mental factors. I mean, you can come up with whatever numbers that you want. But whether there is actual mental factors is not, it's up to question. Any other questions?
Yeah.
Question.
Sure.
About intending to move towards an object and then you give that object your attention and then the contact is reciprocal thing, like when you were giving the example of giving attention to Jason and then like you intended to and then you gave him your attention, is the contact like what is that contact? Jason as the object.
그래서 다들 코란을 따서 제신 따서 네가 뭐 래퍼도 가르려도.
단다 디 definition 마인 바 강델라 타란 디 수문데 렉 셈데 율라 트래블 제바 베나간주 디 딘데 레스 싱깅 볼 레스 삼두 잠발라 딜라 딘디지 치 레바이나 디기 셈데다 딩이니 치 트래블 제바 딘디지 응원나 이거 딘디지
So at the very beginning, in more kind of general, it says contact causes the mind and object to meet. So as soon as I see Jason, that's the contact in general. So just meeting of, again, if you go behind, then there's an eye consciousness, eye organ, so these particular components. But in general, just seeing him is the contact. Sure.
The authorship of the book.
Oh, yeah.
On
that. Are you asking about this book?
Chidani da injidila danda candidate uji in hamigo tanda dipena tanda dinge lagwala sundegi chabi dita uchi ane chir kamurun buchi wonshi da chiki leshar tende chi ola ane chidani kepe wangbo ta chiki tensakani pe labalumnya se tubo nande genji tende ki ane sojung zuji tende ki ane lamdun ola 다디 지지 조조 디나라 장샤바디 자갈 케베기 지용기 자갈 용다기 자갈 케베 계중 망쳐와디 자갈 케베 계중 인사를 상으로 근데 딘디기 롱덴다 캡텐 세마요와 딘데 오디디지기 딘디나샤바디레 조조 장원을 묻히기 갈로블람덴다 디기 오니 나이나 인지데 소중도 다란디 원디리 슈바이나데 지다니 당한조 단다 따루시바이나레 셈지콜라임바이나레 당한조 셈 지게 인지나라 규르타미다 요사레데 당아라 제방아란기 섬주도 제바이나 단다 디뎁디 디에네 직콩 셈바다 야와 덴디시 레사 삼게도
디줄을 디마시오 말비시 요즘에 말 디줄을 디마시오
디줄다 디마데나 지단에 딱 난다 군주 슈도 찍찍 콜라데 셈셈 콜라데 템바치
So this book is basically is a compilation, based on the vision and under the instructions of His Holiness the Dalai Lama. So compiling, this book, and then under his instruction, there was a committee formed by very learned scholars from the different monastic institutions. They come together and then they sort of put together this book in this order, and the content are mostly based on the commentaries by the Indian masters, Buddhist masters, and how it is translated here. Geshe is saying that he considered it as a sort of a standard valid. 가는 디골 한다 셈셈주 도진다 왕만 반디다 가지 다 쇼도 가지 다 속 쉬겨라 버리시.
다 디디 도지도 다 해나 다 거기 나 가가마 디디 망보여 다 된대.
So to what I was adding was, when you look at the mind and mental factors itself, mind and mental factor is an extraction from the Abhidharma text. So Abhidharma, there's a higher Abhidharma, lower Abhidharma, and mostly comes from higher Abhidharma. And then that Abhidharma section, the Abhidharma is a big text. Mind and mental factor is one part in it. And for mind and mental factor, then there are many different interpretations, text, particularly on mind and mental factors by Indian commentaries as well as Tibetan, commentaries and definition, function, types, totally separate. But in here, more kind of general, especially the translation is done for ordinary, it's very readable as compared to if you look at the particular mind and mental factors book, translation is very, I guess, academic or too conservative.
지단에 단다 디간라네 지게 천이다 여왕 어디서 어디 지용기 투몽기 안에 지금 가서 densa 오지나 densa 만다와라네 한지 딘데기 양지 대신 대번데 와자다 제바자다 익자단 딘데 카가 요르데나 따단다 디간라 주샤바데 투몽기 안에 지르 다 벽이 남배 공부하잖아요. 지용기 투몽도 켈레야기 딘데 시자나네 딘데 제샤바 딘데 인사를 삼거든.
So he thinks, although different monastic institutions has their own what's called documents, their own kind of commentaries, but this one is more based on commonly or widely accepted, interpretations of the mind and mental factors.
다라 지단에 응아주 남베 켄데 켄고르데 응아주 슝 곰베스 곰바데절라 록준 체기 슝 자와 시데네 개개슝기 자와다 되기 대와 아니 시합스 숨기 숨붐 되기 대와라 아니 다 곰바 소소소소게네 직 이제다보 이 대와 난데바 망보죠 다 딘딜라 림바체네 딘딜 난고레스 원데네
So the commentaries, the foundation, the root itself is Indian commentary. Then in Gelugpa tradition, for those commentary, there's additional commentaries by Tsongkhapa and his two spiritual sons. And then additionally further, there's further more kind of detailed commentary, what we call author of the commentary following the Gelugpa lineages. So different, tradition has a different interpretations, although it's all same on the mind and mental factors. But this one is, as we said earlier, it's more kind of commonly, widely accepted.
Question.
Sure.
The text we're studying now is originally composed in Tibetan language and then translated to English, presumably under the direction of Tenzin, which means a translation choices. Would be something that we would look to as being accurate.
You're Polish.
네, 그래서
The Tenzin bag Juro and Jur this yaga you grow all
yeah.
So I said earlier in Tibetan there's three versions. Yeah, so Pyudol the Sumsto. So yeah, I think because when we first choose this book, I struggled with what is the translation. So in Tibetan there are three versions: long, middle, short. But in English, as you said, I think the translation is done under Thupten Jinpa's instruction. But as a translator, sometimes there are lots of words that doesn't match what I use usually, and especially the earlier the texts that we study lots were translated by Stephen Batchelor's, Jeffrey Hopkins, and Berzin is whole another level. So you don't understand this. Yeah, so depends a lot on the translations. But I prefer Thupten Jinpa, and his one is most.
I mean, I know it was difficult for me as a beginning student. If you read one text by one translator, they're using a certain set of terms. And then you go on to read another book by a different translator. They're using different terms for the
Yeah,
same
totally
word.
different terms.
They're talking about the
Yeah,
same thing. So it's very difficult, kind of like definitive translation. So that was the motivation for my question, to see if you thought this would lead to. And of course, it's Tubten Jinpa. I'm not asking you to criticize Tubten Jinpa, but if these could be kind of definitive, considered definitive.
이 코랑기 뭐란데 갈레디 두사 베제직 베신 장거는 고 인지돌도 기교직이 책 베지신 바스탄 기교직이 섹션 바스 베지장 배 된다 고아 로갈렌 갈레도도. Yeah, I think that's I would say maybe a problem because in the ancient Tibet, when there's a translation is done by Tibetan scholar with Indian Pandita, and then under the instructions of the royal, and then there are several other scholars which would then review, edit again and again. If it is really bad, it will tie to the dog's tail and embarrass. So yeah, but in Tibetan, like one text, like Shantideva's Guide to the Bodhisattva's Way of Life, when we come together, recite just one text, no problem. In English, you have at least 6-7 different translations.
They do that like definitively, but
I wish the translators could all agree on the language. I'm always going to use these words for the 5 aggregate.
and that will never happen. I mean,
교육을 강도 교육 강해도 유인한 아주 준주로 날로는 냠냠도 로야 이게 너무
어디 니든지도 오르셔다 안그래 지단
you get a couple of fist fights and a few insulted ancestors, just arguing over words. You don't have like the central authority just kind of in charge of everything, like they did in ancient.
디 칼레도 지단에 칼레도 지단에 남베 숑라 제 경우로 뭐제 칼롭 난고레 남베 숑데라 지 양도 베 야부 지마 지진 데기 장이 되바여나 직디 나 단다 베이 장나마도 다면도 소만하제 테스티 장나마도 가버려서.
So to really kind of understand what he was saying deeply, profoundly, as His Holiness often advised, study the language itself. And other than that, it will be difficult. But again, it's not easy, right? To learn stuff.
라소.
So I mean, yeah, if this is just kind of very general, easy to read. But if you want to go to more classic, translated book, there are books available just on mind and mental factors alone.
It's okay. Page number 49. chanchu senchu rinpo che mangye banam je juru kewa nyamba meba yang kongne kondu pewa rasho yukandri rave kurve shinkan pendang dewa mali chungwe ne chere sewa tenzin gyatso ye shabe site badu den juru je Java Bowe Jidara Kempa Dan Kundu Sambo Teyan Dejen De Teda Kunje Jesu Dalo Kewa Dida Tamje Rabdu Ngo E Tisum Shebe Yawa Tamje Ge Ngo Kangla Jodo Ngaba Dagi Kewe Tawa Digwe Kyan Sambo Jeje Rabdu Ngo in English.
May the spiritual Bodhicitta that has not arisen arise and grow, and may that which is arisen not diminish, but increase more and more. In the land encircled by snow-white mountains, the source of all happiness and benefit flows in your presence, generously in your soul. Please remain until samsara ends. Just as the Bodhisattva Manjushri attained omniscience and smart about the truth, so now do I dedicate these merits to train and follow in their footsteps. As all the victorious Buddhas of the past, present, and future praise education as supreme, so now I too dedicate these sources of my mind for all beings to perfect good actions.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.